Hello friends, in today's session we talk about availability set and load balancer. How to create availability set in the Azure cloud and what is the advantage of creating availability set. Availability set is a logical grouping of virtual machine that allows Azure to understand how your application is built to provide redundancy and availability. We recommend that two or more virtual machines are created within an availability set to provide for highly available application to meet the 99.95% Azure SLA. This is no There is no cost for availability set itself. You can pay for each VM instances that you create. Okay, how do availability set works? Each virtual machine in your availability set is assigned an update domain and a fault domain by underlying Azure platform. Each availability set can be configured up to 3 fault domain and 20 update domains. These configuration cannot be changed once availability set has been created. Update domain indicates group of virtual machines and underlying physical hardware that can be rebooted at the same time. The order of update domains being rebooted may not proceed sequentially during planned maintenance, but only update domain is rebooted at a time. A rebooted update domain is given 30 minutes to recover before maintenance is initiated on a different update domain. Fault domain define the group of virtual machine that shares common power and network switch. By default, the virtual machines are configured within your availability set are separated across up to 3 fault domains. While placing your virtual machine into an availability set does not protect your application from operating system or application specific failure, but it does limit impact of potential physical hardware failure, network outage, or the power interruption. Okay, the entire thing you can understand with this picture. In this data center we have 3 different racks. Every rack is referred to as fault domain. You can say here fault domain 0 is a rack 1, fault domain 1 is a rack 2, fault domain 2 is a rack 3. So you can think of a physical connectivity of a rack is a fault domain. This fault domain, like a power and network, is separate for a separate fault domain. In case of any power failure or network failure, only one rack stops, other rack remain continuous. Similarly, the update domain we have is basically the domain which is the computers rebooted. Like if you see, each VM is different update domain 1, update domain 2, update domain 3. If for example I have these two VMs here, one in fault domain 0 and another is fault domain 1, and update domain 1 and update domain 2, in case of any power failure or data network switch failure, only one machine will not be available, and the machine will still be available because they are connected to different fault domains. Okay, if you take about update domain, in case of any reboot of the system, update system or reboot system, only one server will be restarted once it is up, and after 30 minutes second server will be updated. So this way both the machines in the availability set will provide you 99.95% availability. If you can do now, VMs are also aligned with the disk fault domains. This alignment ensures that all the managed disk attached to the VMs. So we should not attach unmanaged disk, we should attach to managed disk the VMs within the same fault domain. Only VM with the managed disk can be created in a managed availability set. This number of managed disk fault domains varies by region, either 2 or 3 managed. Okay, now here we'll do the lab. We should have a resource group and VNet created. In the same resource group we have to create availability set, and we will deploy 2 VMs in the same data center. Okay, and availability zone, we cannot create every place because for the availability zone my region may have 2 different zones, but some region there is no 2 different zones available, so we have to create AV set for this purpose. Okay, now there are 2 major components we discussed about: fault domain and update domain. Fault domain, you can think of a rack; update domain, you can think of a server. Okay, let's see, we have already created resource group. Here I've created resource group 3 and vnet 3 in my network. Okay, then here I will show you how to, then after creating the resource group and vnet, we have to create the availability set. Also availability set 3 have been created in the VM. I will show you my Azure login now. Okay, if after installing the AV set, we have to solve two different machines VMs in the same availability set. I installed VM server 1 and VM server 2 in that availability set, and after that I made this I connect these two web servers with the help of the load balancer. Load balancer refer to evenly distributing the load across a group of backend servers. Azure load balancer operates at the layer 4 of OSI model. It is a single point of contact for the clients. Load balancer distribute the inbound traffic that arrives at the load balancer front end and backend pool instances. Two backend pool instances. The flow of the flow according to the configured load balancing rule and health props. The backend instances can be Azure virtual machine instances or the virtual machine scale set. So here we have created a load balancer. Load balancer is going to connect my both the virtual machines. We will not be using virtual machine public IP to connect to internet. We will be using a load balancer public IP, which will be connecting the VM's backend. So if any of the VMs are not available, we will not realize a web machine failure, because at least one server is up and will be able to resolve the web page. Okay, here in that case I will show you how to create this. After creating both the VM, I have created the actually load balancer. In the load balancer, I have resource group and vnet and AV set created with the two virtual machines and installed with the IS service. And I open the load balancer and I create a web server load balancer 1, and then in the subscription resource group region, after I create a public IP for a load balancer, and after creating a public IP of load balancer, I open the load balancer, I create a backend pool. In the backend pool, I connect both the VMs which I have connected as web server 1 and 2 as a backend, and in the health prop I configure a health prop like a 5 seconds and 2 default, like a if 2 the health prop is 5 seconds and 2 number of 2 health prop failure is I have accepted a threshold. It means if 10 seconds one server is unavailable, load balancer will remove that server from the pool, so that no application, no request going to miss. When every request is coming, it will be forwarded by the load balancer to one of the active server. Is used TCP port 80 because it's web application, and that's it. After creating in the front end pool, I will have a public IP, and backend pool I have a virtual machine which I have created. In the load balancers, a number of machines minimum there should be 2, and health prop also configured. These three things are very important component to create a load balancer. Let's see the lab. I will show you in my portal as I have created here. You see here in my availability set, if you see, I have created availability set, AV set name AV set 3, and before I create availability set, I have to have a resource group. I already created resource group 3 here. Resource group 3 already created. Inside resource group 3, I have created a VMs also. See, two web servers, two VMs are there, web server 1 and web server 2. So web server 1 and web server 2 is there, and also AV set 2 is 3 is there. Okay, if I show you here my VMs, I already installed virtual machine. There are two virtual machines installed, and every virtual machine is configured with the web server IS service. And in the IS service, I change the default page for the IS web server 1 as web server 1 and web server 2 as a web server 2, so that we can identify we are opening both the machines. Both the machine have the public IP. I am not going to connect public IP. I will connect public IP of a load balancer. If after virtual machine, if I go to load balancer, AV set already created. In the AV set, I have added, while installing virtual machine, I installed AV set. I select AV set. In the AV set, if you see virtual machine, I have two virtual machines running, web server 1 and web server 2. Both the machines are running a different fault domain and different update domain. This makes my redundancy of my servers make sure my servers are redundant and load balance also across the availability set. If I in the availability set also, if I go back to my load balance, I show you here my load balance also created. mm, I've configured web server load 3. If you see in the web server, I already have a front end configured. If you go to the front end setting, my load balancer name is web server load balancer 3. If I go inside backend, I have pool 1, 2 virtual machine, load balancing rule I have created, health probe I have created. If I go to here VM, the backend, you can see here both the VM is added as a backend here to my web server 1 and web server 2, and both are connected with the private IP. In the front end, I have a public IP of my load balancer. I will copy this IP to open in my web browser. Let me copy this IP, and in the help probe, here is a help probe is set to here probe 1. It is actually interval is 5 seconds. Okay, this way is going to work. Let me show you this public IP open in my web page. You can see now this time is opening web server 1 as a load balancer. If I use any other, some other person will use, he will may say see web server 1, but this I indicated only load balancer is working. Otherwise this all servers are identical when you open any load balancer, and it may be any server, you don't know which server is there, but you will definitely your page is your request is resolved, because we have a number of servers available in the backend, and any of the servers available, so my website will always open. Okay, that's it in the this AV set, and I hope you enjoyed this session. If you find this session useful, kindly like, subscribe and share. Okay, thanks for watching.